Okay, so how do we draw orbital diagrams? We have to follow three rules. And these rules that I will be presenting to you are simplified versions. So if you would like to read all about these rules, you can refer to your book. So the first rule is the Aufbau principle, wherein it states that you should fill up lower energy orbitals first. Okay, so you cannot fill up energy level 2 before filling up energy level 1. And at the same token, you cannot fill up the P sublevel without filling up the S first, or you cannot fill up the D sublevel without filling up the P first. Okay, so next would be the Hund's rule, and it states that you have to fill up equal energy orbitals with one electron before adding their pairs. So an example of a sublevel with equal energy orbitals is the P sublevel. You have Px, Py, and Pz. Okay, so you have to fill up first the Px, and then the Py, and then the Pz with one before you double up. So we'll see that in the next couple of examples. And then finally, rule 3 is Pauli's exclusion principle, wherein it states that a maximum of 2 electrons can occupy a single orbital and no 2 electrons in an orbital should have the same spin. So basically in a box, okay, you cannot have 3 electrons, you cannot have 4, you only have a maximum of 2. And furthermore, those 2 electrons cannot have the same spin. All right, so in your modules, there was an example um, of an orbital diagram, which is for boron. Okay, the atomic number of boron is 5, so this gives you an idea of how many electrons we need to fill up. Okay, we don't actually need the electron configuration. This is just shown so that you can relate the electron configuration to the orbital diagrams. Okay, so the very first thing that we need to know is again the number of electrons. And since this is a ground state electron configuration and we consider our examples as ground state atoms, we can look at the atomic number and that would be already equal to your um, number of electrons. Okay, so this has already been answered, but how do we apply the rules? Okay, so again, we have to follow the three rules in filling up the orbital diagram. Okay, so we know that it has uh, 5 electrons. So we're going to start filling up the boxes with 5 electrons now. So the first box is the 1s, okay? And then we put 2 electrons there. So that's 1 and 2. We're left with 3. We can now move on to the next orbital, which is the 2s, okay? And then fill it up with 2. Notice I am not filling up any of these orbitals with 3 or more electrons. And notice also the sequence in how I um, entered the electrons in the orbital. So by convention, we start with the up arrow. Okay, we start with the up arrow and then the down arrow next. And then after we fill up with one orbital with 2 electrons, we move on to the next. Now we go to the p orbital. So there are 3 p orbitals, but we're only going to be using one of these boxes. Okay, so I'll just write here to illustrate to you. So you have here the 2p. You can write 2px, 2py, 2pz, but this would be fine. Just writing the 2p there. Okay, so since we already have 4 electrons written, we only need 1. And there you go. This is the orbital diagram of boron. Okay,